9:25 p.m. There's a knock at my door. I get up and I take the blankets off. The remote control goes on the ground. Batteries rolling under the bed. I got to scratch around for them, trying to find them, put them back in the remote control. Now I got to use tape to tape it back together. I don't even have time to put my back brace on. I get to my door, and who is it?
Come here! Let's go, give me a flipper!
All right. Welcome to an episode in the 70s, not the 1970s, but like 70s, however many was done, of Amateur Hours. I am here on location at Buffalo Wild Wings in, is this Port Arthur or Mid-County or Nederland or something?
It's like a combination of Port Arthur, Nederland, Port Acres. It's all kind of wrapped in
the borders of Mid-County are drawn up like a middle-aged fiefdom.
Yes.
Where there's like, Wales, kind of Scotland ducks on in there somewhere.
There's probably a little bit of gerrymandering going on.
Oh, Jerry's been manhandling this place forever. Joining me in this booth, because we are in a booth, is Troy.
Hey.
And Aaron.
Hello.
And Walt, who's in the bathroom right now.
Just disappeared.
But he'll be back at some point.
He's emptying out his colostomy bag right now.
Good Lord. Do you have to go to the bathroom to do that?
Well, where else would you empty it out?
I feel like you would just get a new bag. Like you don't.
I know, but where do you put the full bag?
The full bag?
I think that gives you the privacy to throw away the bag.
Aaron says that it gives you the privacy to throw. I agree. You could throw away the full bag.
Dump it out into the toilet and just reattach it?
That way it's a dump.
Yeah, you take a dump and then you reattach it. Maybe rinse it out just to so it fills up.
You're a very frugal colostomist.
Oh, I would be. Yeah, if I had to have that, I would probably.
You'd reuse your bags constantly.
Yes.
You would make a dandy heroin addict. They reuse needles constantly.
Oh yeah, I'll share them with people.
Because you're a generous, frugal heroin addict.
There he is. Did you get your colostomy bag fixed? It's all good now.
Walt is back and unbagged.
Unbagged. He just left it unbagged. He's free balling right now.
Free
bag.
Free holding. Holy free holies. Well, okay. Anyway.
Say hello. Hello.
So we'll quickly go through what we expect for the Fall League. Then we'll get on to something more important. The Fall League starts September 26th. If you haven't signed up yet, go ahead and sign up now. We're only going to probably take 8 or 10 teams, leaning more toward
teams.
8 or 10.
Oh.
No. I don't think I want to go over 10 teams, right?
Yes, I would not want to. That would be a long day for all of us.
So if you're going to sign up, you need to do it pretty soon. I think we already have 3 or 4. So if you want to do it, sign up now. We'll put your games on YouTube. If I get a chance this year, I will do some Games of the Week and highlights. And we might even do the podcast from there a couple of times, get some people to come on and do some interviews from the field. So that's all the new news about the league, but I don't know how many of you know this. But over the last, Walt? 3 weeks you had to deal with this?
Since August 20th.
So since August 20th, Walt Durham, who's the president of our league and a fine leader and a fine man, went through coronavirus level 10. So we wanted to let Walt, and actually Walt asked, he's like, I want to tell people what this was like on the podcast. So here is Walt and his experiences with the COVID.
Yeah, so August 20th, I was diagnosed with or tested positive for, the good old corona. Started out fine. I always thought that if I caught the coronavirus that I was going to be okay because I've had no underlying health conditions. I'm a healthy guy. I've never had the flu or anything like that. Well, about day 10, I've realized that something was really wrong. and I found out that I had what's called bilateral pneumonia. And what that means is I had pneumonia in both of my lungs, which, if you don't know, that's what it does. It causes inflammation in the lungs, which causes pneumonia and blood clots. Those are two things that COVID causes. So I had a severe case of COVID pneumonia. So I was admitted to the hospital Sunday the 29th.
Which hospital did you go to?
I went to Baptist.
In Beaumont,
Yeah,
right?
I went to Baptist in Beaumont. It was recommended to me to go to Baptist in Beaumont because they were one of the first people to like have a COVID treatment in the area, and they have a good COVID treatment. They have a good success rate. Well, I was admitted August 29th, and for my O2 level was 83, which, if y'all don't know, as you sit here listening to this podcast, you're probably at 98, maybe 97. Most people, if you're healthy, that's about where you're at. Anything below 90 is a death wish, and you can't breathe. So I was admitted to the hospital with 83 O2, and my fever was 103.
That's crazy. 103 fever, serious.
Yeah, so I ran 103 fever a couple times during the virus. And August 29th is when I guess I started hell. I mean, it was bad.
Is that when you went to the hospital, or is that when you started feeling terrible?
That's when I was admitted to the hospital.
Okay.
So they were like, yeah, we're going to put you on some antivirals, and it really makes people feel better, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, great. I'm in the hospital, but I'm going to be better. Well, my body wouldn't respond to the medicine, and my condition got worse. I required more and more oxygen to keep my levels close to even 90. And
at this point, did you have the BiPAP thing?
No, I
just had oxygen.
I just had oxygen.
Okay.
And so the doctor, pulmonologist, the lung specialist came in and gave me this thing called an incentive spirometer. It is what saved my life, but it is also the worst thing that's ever been invented by a human.
What did it do?
So it's this thing where it forces you to inhale deeply.
Okay.
And its purpose, like if you have heart surgery, they give it to you and make you do these exercises 10 times an hour so that it prevents pneumonia. Well,
right.
If you already have pneumonia, what it's trying to do is open your lungs back up.
Right.
So the doctor told me to do it twice every 10 minutes. Well, it was the most painful thing I've ever done. To this day, I can't describe to you the pain because it makes your lungs burn. It makes the muscles in your chest hurt. It knocks your O2 down,
right?
Because you're putting out energy,
right?
And they just told me to suck it up and
go through it.
It's the only thing that's going to save your life, and if it hurts too bad, we'll give you pain medicine. And I did it for 8 hours straight.
Ma'am?
Yeah,
we did.
Okay, so which one is that?
That's Hopadillo, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was like, when I saw you looking at it, you were like, what does all this mean? Go ahead.
So, I did it for 8 hours straight. I wanted to cry. I wanted to, you're close to just saying, fuck it, I'll die.
Just give up, right?
I mean, yeah. And doctor came in the next day, and I was like, I just did these exercises. It was taking me 5 minutes to recover after every 10 minutes. It take it out of you. And doctor came in the next day. I'm like, I'm better, right? I'm getting better. The x-ray's looking good. And he goes, no, you got worse. And it's the most disheartening thing you've ever heard in your life.
Right.
It's because
I did everything right.
I did everything right. And I'm like, I did it. And I said, I did everything right. And he said, sometimes it just works out this way. And then they put me on this big machine called a BiPAP, which is the one machine before you go onto a ventilator.
Right.
Luckily, I wasn't claustrophobic or anything like this. It's this big old mask, and it just pushes air into your lungs, and then it sucks out the CO2 when you go to exhale.
So it basically it's like
It's forcing you
an
to breathe.
a car that has a driver, like a, what do they call them? It's automatic car. What do they call them? Driverless car.
Yeah.
But you're still kind of breathing.
Yeah. So the good thing was that I responded well to that. It got my oxygen up to like 98, 99, and I could rest because my body was a little wore out from the exercises.
Right.
And but I was on that for 24 hours, and luckily I was able to go back down to like regular oxygen. And I sat there and took medicine for the 5 days, and no changes, my x-rays didn't get better every day, my breathing didn't get better. It was just like nothing.
Right, no progress.
And they told me that was good news, that I didn't get worse. And I was like, well,
I'd like to leave at some point.
I'd like to leave at some point. Well, after about 3 days, I spent 3 days on a gurney in the emergency room because there's no beds available in the hospitals, if y'all don't know that.
Yeah.
There was literally people in the hallways. Like, it looked like a war zone.
Right.
There's people people in the hallways coughing and, laying in beds on machines that I was on. So finally, after like 3 days, they were able to get me into the COVID unit, and they were able to put me on what's called like a high flow oxygen. And so I was able to get, they put me on 40 liters of 100% oxygen. And I was like, okay, cool. And they told me, like, I can go home, I'll be able to go home with an oxygen tank once it comes down. I said, okay, well, where do I need to get my oxygen to?
Right.
They said 2 liters. And I was on 40.
So you're on 40.
I was on 40.
Well, that's only 38 liters.
Only 38 liters. And also, so 2 liters, I needed to be at 2 liters 50% to go home. So I was at 40 liters and 100%.
Right.
So my body got really swollen. It freaked kind of like my family out. There's some pictures, and I'll give them to you, Cody, and you can post them.
Okay. I'll put them on there.
It scared my wife. Lost 20 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, and
should being scared for you.
Yeah, and
you lost weight too, right?
Yes. Before I left the hospital, I was like 35 pounds down, which is about 20% of my body weight.
Yeah.
So I was able to eat the last week I was there. I started eating 3 meals a day and some cheese sticks that my wife would bring me. And I left the hospital 25 pounds down.
Man, the COVID diet.
The COVID diet, it works. Don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But it works.
Well, I hear most of it's water weight anyway.
Yeah. So I look a little different. I went from center to wide receiver.
And you can fit in a lot of windows you couldn't fit in before.
Yeah. So
you'd be an excellent burglar.
COVID can kick your ass, and it was miserable, and but my story's not like unique. Like, I'm 30. So for those who don't know, I'm 35 years old.
You had a lot of other people there, right?
Yeah, there was. I want to say they told me my brain doesn't work quite like it used to. Like, just being honest, but I want to say they said there was like 87 people in Baptist
when you were there.
When I was there with COVID, and if you go to the hospital with COVID, it's because of the pneumonia. 9 times out of 10. 87 people there. 85 of us were unvaccinated.
Okay.
So 2 people there were vaccinated. One of the vaccinated people was a 70-year-old lady that was basically asymptomatic, but precautionary.
But she was old, and they sent her there that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other one, I don't know if it was like underlying health conditions. I can't tell you.
Don't know.
Because I would ask the nurses all kinds of questions.
Sure. I would figure that would become your life.
It
became
my
that
life.
time, yeah.
So it became really clear that the vaccine is what will keep you out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And, every nurse told me that because I've never had the flu, I've never had strep throat, I've never had bronchitis. I mean, I've really never even had a cold.
Right.
They said, you need to make sure you go and tell people it doesn't matter if you have diabetes or whatever. Like, this new Delta variant is attacking men, especially men in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
It does not like. But in the same token, I know we got a lot of younger guys in our league.
Right.
There was a 29-year-old being put on a ventilator as I left. And because I know this because I became friends with the nurse after 12 days in the hospital. You kind of become friends with
those
people.
are your
your only friends.
Yeah.
Because people can't come visit you. Like, it's a lonely time. So a 29-year-old. I mean, just being put on a ventilator. And I know we talked earlier before the podcast. The odds of coming off a ventilator are not good.
Right.
Even if you're 100% healthy. And to put it in perspective, I was really scared of going on a ventilator. I was really close to going on a ventilator. And the nurse told me, with all the confidence in the world, but I've seen people come off the ventilator, sir.
It can happen.
It can happen. And so I really didn't want to go on the ventilator after she said
I bet
that.
not.
So luckily, Monday, I got out of the hospital Thursday, the 9th. So on Monday, my wife would FaceTime me every morning as she brought our daughter to school. And she said, "Wow, you look really skinny," because my swelling, I guess, had went down overnight.
Yeah.
And she goes, "You look really good." And then the nurse walked in and goes, "Wow, you look really good." And I go,
And you thought, I might get laid out of this.
yeah. Well, I didn't realize I looked that bad, beforehand.
I knew that long before you got
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
I knew how bad you were.
Yeah. So Monday was the day that a light switch went off, and then Tuesday they came in and said, "You're in the clear. You're going to live. Now you just have to worry about permanent damage,
Right.
and you have to do those. You have to continue to do work to not have any permanent damage." So
It's like a consolation prize.
yeah,
Like,
consolation
thanks.
prize is you live.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who really thought it would never happen to them.
Yeah.
And it was really scary being in the hospital, opening up Facebook and watching friends of friends, rest in peace, COVID got another one. And
Yeah.
and even today, we had somebody from the softball league, pass away. He was in Baptist when I was there, but he didn't make it. He died
Yeah.
yesterday. It's a real thing now, and it's no longer something that if you're overweight, diabetic, or old, that it's going to attack.
Could be anybody.
It literally, they told me if you draw the short straw, you draw the short straw.
Yeah.
And I drew the short straw.
So you had told us certain people texted you and messaged you.
Yes.
What was good and bad? Like, what was something that was not helpful for you when you're going through this?
So not helpful. I had several people who professions are secretary, construction worker, coin dealer, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They would text me and give me great medical advice on
Okay.
what I need to tell the pulmonologist, what type of medicine that I need and don't need. Make sure they don't give you Regeneron or or
The stuff
this,
that'll save you.
the
You
stuff
don't want that.
make sure they don't give you this. And look, they're going to try to put you on a vent because they make extreme amounts of money when you're on a vent.
And you're over there dying. You're like, look.
So, we have come to a place with coronavirus that, and I posted something about this on Facebook the other day. Nobody takes financial advice from a broke person, but everybody's taking medical advice from people who've never opened a biology book or a chemistry book.
Right.
And it just needs to stop because, people are like, well, you have a choice. You don't have to go on a ventilator. I'm here to tell you, you have zero choice. When it comes to that time, it's either you go on a damn ventilator or you die.
Yeah.
And it's that serious, and, you feel helpless
Right.
because no matter what I did, my body would not respond.
Yeah.
I'm a 35-year-old man, and we as 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds think we're invincible. And then you realize you're not.
Yeah.
For something that you can't control, it's a bad deal. And I'll tell you this. So I hinted to the vaccine. The vaccine keeps you out of the hospital. There's no damn microchips in it, or I don't want to hear it. Do not come to me with there's microchips or anything like that.
What if it's turning the frogs gay?
It might turn the frogs gay.
Okay. We
That's
can
fine.
deal with that.
A couple gay frogs ain't gonna hurt anybody.
No, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Now, gay toad, I will not abide by a gay toad.
But if you're just one of the unfortunate ones that ends up like me,
Yeah.
If you die from it, it's a slow and painful death,
Right.
and your family gets to watch you die like that
On
'Cause
FaceTime.
not
Not even in real life.
in
on
FaceTime.
Yeah.
And they get all the hope in the world because every day they try to give you positive news, but
You see the numbers.
yeah, and they watch you die. Like I
Yeah.
literally had my family get off the FaceTime with me, crying because they saw the pain and how bad of shape I was,
Right.
and you just don't realize it. You know, I have a newfound respect, obviously, for the coronavirus. I didn't treat it as serious as I probably should have. I know I didn't treat it as serious as I should have.
Yeah.
You know, I was going to bars and stuff like that, and I was
Licking-
unvaccinated.
Did you lick any doorknobs?
Did not lick any doorknobs.
Okay. Well,
And
not
the
that
bad,
bad.
and the bad thing about Delta is it's 2 or 3 times as contagious.
Well, yeah, even if you're careful.
Yeah.
You can get it.
And so I know we have a lot of healthy people in our league, but
Yeah.
I promise you want to be vaccinated.
Yeah, well, not only that, we all have parents that are in their 50s.
100%.
You know, all of us.
At least.
Do. Well, not all of us. Troy's mom's in her 60s. My dad's almost 60. Like, you know, we all have parents that are the age that's kind of like where, well, I mean, they may or may not make it. And a lot of our parents won't get vaccinated for one reason or the other. Good, bad, and indifferent. But we, as young, healthy people, could do this, at least for the people we care about.
You know how many people were in the hospital because of complications due to the vaccine?
None?
None.
Well, I believe that. Yeah, you know,
So you sent me an interesting podcast on the
Yeah.
vaccine. Not interesting. It was boring as hell. But it was real information.
look, that's all I do, okay? I listen
Yeah.
to boring things.
But so, and the numbers that came out of there were 12 out of every million, 12 people out of every million who are vaccinated
Yeah.
will have a complication with the vaccine.
Yes, a complication with the vaccine. Not dead.
Not
but-
dead, a complication.
Yes.
And the most common is the enlargement of the muscles around the heart.
Correct.
And that is treatable with a couple pills in 2 weeks.
Yes. Now, but with COVID, you have 1% of people who die of it, and then a giant percent of people, not giant, but, you know, a larger percent of people who go to the hospital with it and have to go through this god-awful struggle where
So-
you don't know if you're going to make it.
So I'm a fortunate guy in the fact that, so if y'all know, so I'm going to tell everybody, you know, the 2 people who are listening to the podcast, that
Yeah, we might get 4 for this one.
might get 4, but the you know, I'm a fortunate guy in the fact that financially I'm okay,
Right.
stuff like that. But so for those that don't know, I have a long road of recovery in front of me. I have about 4 to 6 months of recovery, and we don't know what that recovery does. Does that recovery get me to pre-COVID? You know, does that recovery allow me to run again?
Yeah, or just brisk walks.
Or brisk walks, you know.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that is, but it's 4 to 6 months of, like, if you hear me stop, you hear me stopping because I'm running out of breath talking on
Right.
a podcast. So if I worked outside in construction, you know, I was telling y'all this, I would be on temporary disability
Right.
because there's no way I could work. Yeah. So my health, as of today, I've been out of the hospital a little over a week. I can walk up 1 flight of stairs. I have a stairs in my house.
Right.
But I have to sit down and recover before I do anything else. And that is my health now.
Right. And that's
I can't walk for 6 minutes without my levels dropping to a number where I can't breathe.
right. Because you look normal.
I look normal.
You know, you look like I've always thought you looked. Thank you. And it's got to be weird to think, look in the mirror and go, I look like I've always looked, and just not be able to do the things you could always do.
Yeah, like in the mornings are really bad for me, and it's typical with COVID patients or COVID pneumonia. In the mornings is really hard starting, so I still have to sleep with oxygen and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But so in the morning, just walking from getting out of bed and walking to the bathroom to pee, I lose my breath.
Really?
And so you kind of have to plan your morning to go pee. Because
Wow.
you have to do it in stages. So that's, like, this is my reality. I went from somebody who could run 5 miles a week, nothing spectacular.
And just have a good time. Like,
Yeah.
You and I are similar people in that, like, you're younger than I am, but and more athletic. But like, I have never felt like I just can't do the things I want to do.
Yeah.
To like, you have to plan out your morning.
Yeah.
It
So
sucks.
I went to eat. The next day I got out of the hospital because they told me I could go eat and stuff, but I had a rolling oxygen tank.
Right.
And because I was on oxygen, and people look at you and stuff, and that's that really don't bother me, but I realized that I was like a fucking 70-year-old man.
Yeah, you're like.
I got a rolling oxygen tank,
Walt over
and I've
there.
got an oxygen hose in my nose.
The next thing you'll be at the Golden Corral.
I mean, I really wanted to go to the casino
Yeah, that's what she did at the casino.
with a fanny pack.
There is that bingo place on 11th Street.
Aaron said there is that bingo place on 11th Street. Yeah, there's a lot of health nuts in there. So, Walt, I asked you about the people that were not unhelpful when you were in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
What was helpful? Like who? What was a helpful thing people
So
did?
there was every day people would obviously text me, "Are you better today?" And like I told you, there was a stretch of 6 or 7 days where there were just no changes, and that's a scary
Right.
part. And there was days I didn't have energy to respond to those people.
Yeah.
But the good, there were people other than I'm going to talk outside of my family, outside of my wife, outside of my mom, and outside of my aunt.
The reason I ask this is we're all at some point, whether COVID or not, going to have someone we probably care about that's having to go through something really hard in the hospital or otherwise. And I think you're in a really special position to say what was actually good to hear.
Yeah, so like Jake was
That's Jake Diltz, the very mysterious Jake Diltz, by the way.
Jake's texts were always positive. He didn't go for the medical advice kind of thing.
Right.
And it was just genuine, like being able to talk, and he's like, "Oh man, you're an athlete. You'll recover quickly." In general, positivity, stuff like that.
Get your mind right.
Get your mind right, because, and for those of you who don't know, which hopefully a lot of you don't, when you go in the hospital with COVID, they send in psychiatrists every 2 days to check your mental well-being, because you can't. I went into quarantine August 20th, so nobody touched me for 3 weeks, other than like a nurse putting an EKG on me. And it's lonely, it's hard. So having people kind of talk to you about normal stuff, not like, oh my God, you're not gonna believe what John did today,
Right.
but just like kind of just talk to you, kind of helped. And Jake was one of the few who would do that, but also bring positivity about kind of like, I can do this,
Right.
and it does.
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
It does suck. Like, you feel helpless.
Yeah.
And it's but yeah, people like that who are able to text you positive stuff and kind of and not necessarily just text you stuff about your health.
Anything else.
Anything else that's just it helps.
Right.
Because the whole time you're in there.
And think, like, speaking of like your mental health, whenever you and I were able to text, we didn't text very often because you're going through a lot. So whenever we were able to text, that was about the same time one of my coworkers died from COVID, and I was not going to mention that at all, because I know you hear that. I know you're thinking all day long about what could possibly be going on, and you don't want to hear somebody else has died from it. So I kept that from you, because all it turns you almost hopeless when you're in there. So I didn't want to mention that at all. So it's just one of the things where just hearing that you were able to get out of the hospital, not have to go back in, was an amazing thing to hear, because you hear so many people come out and go back in, and come out, go back in, and then they just don't ever come back out again. So that was the biggest thing, hearing that you were able to get out, and now you are out without being able on your own. So that makes it a big deal.
That was one of the things too. Is like everybody has. I won't say everybody, but 90% of us have Facebook. I'm in the hospital. What do you have to do other than watch daytime television?
Sit there and watch Facebook and daytime TV.
Yeah, and so every time I was open up Facebook, and friends of friends were dying of COVID, and I would like to say it didn't get to me, but it did. I had to turn off Facebook.
Yeah.
To watch some porn.
Troy asked if they give him a few minutes to watch some porn.
So I had buddies who would joke, because eventually I'm going to get into some...
Well, you are a man.
Yeah, I'm going to get into some detail here. So eventually, my wife was able to visit me later on.
Really?
Because I've dealt with COVID. I was able to...
This is the best part of this.
This is going to be the best part of this podcast. It's not going to be what y'all think, but it's going to be the best part of the podcast. And so I dealt with COVID for so long. I've been COVID positive for so long that I wasn't contagious.
Right.
I was dealing with the complications of the COVID pneumonia. So they let one person come visit me towards the end, and it was my wife. But it had to be her, that she was the only person who could come. So she helped give me...
Troy said that's what she said. Go ahead.
She helped give me a bath. One day. And so I had a buddy of mine who's like,
hard.
oh, hey, haha. And I was like, bro, I'm on so much blood thinners.
I can't do it.
It's not happening.
I just wanted someone to clean my nasty ass body.
Yeah. And then one day she was able to help get me, as I got stronger, they were able to put extensions on my oxygen hose, and I was able to go to the actual bathroom and take an actual shower.
Yeah.
She was able to help me do that. But yeah, that's
it's
the last thing.
It's not like a sexy thing, huh?
No, it's not.
Well, I was going to title this segment "Walt's First Blowjob," but I guess I'll put something else there.
No, not going to happen.
Man,
Bro.
that is an adventure. I cannot imagine how it felt. Especially with your lungs when you're trying to do these exercises. You said that was the most painful thing you've ever done.
Most painful thing
I
I've ever
cannot
done.
imagine a lung thing being that painful, because I've never experienced lung pain. It's so strange to me.
I tell people, if you want to know how I felt at my worst, is cover your nose, put a straw in your mouth, and go walk, and only breathe through the straw.
Right.
And that's exactly once you build up a little bit, you'll feel yourself gasping for air, and it hurting not being able to get enough air through a straw.
Right.
And that's exactly what it feels like.
Wow.
Because we did a COPD thing back in health class in high school.
Yeah, where you breathe through a straw. I remember that. Yeah.
I was like, this is that feeling.
Man, I just had to take a deep breath right now to remind myself that I'm not dying. Aaron, do you have anything?
No. Certainly opened my eyes. I've never really known anybody that close that's went through this, and hearing all the details and thinking about what he's gone through. I mean, it's changed my thoughts. Not that I was anti-vax or conspiracy theory, but I think it's put some more urgency in my head. So I'm not vaxxed right now.
There's so when I was in there, you do a lot of research on what's killing you, and there's a 99.993 chance that if you're vaccinated, you'll never see the inside of a hospital. Those are real numbers that are not from Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube.
Are they from your uncle's mind?
They're not from our uncle's mind.
Well, it was what James was telling us back during the tournament is they were able to send people home that had the vaccines. They were able to send them home with a packet of medicine, and they were
antibiotics.
Yeah, antibiotics, and they were okay. So
the vaccine, for those who want to know how it kind of works and preventing that, yes, you have a slight chance you can still catch the freaking virus, but the chances of the inflammation being bad enough to cause bilateral pneumonia in your lungs is slim to none. So it cuts down on the inflammation, which is what COVID causes, and it causes inflammation in your lungs, and it cuts down that severely. So your chances of dying or going to a hospital, which they call severe illness, would be slim to none. And so, like, it's not that I'm wanting sympathy. Like, I'm wanting people to know I was a healthy person who now can't shave with a razor because I'm on so much blood thinners that if I cut myself, like, it's bad. So my heart rate as I went to the bathroom. So y'all saw me go to the bathroom at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah, and y'all changing my colostomy bag or whatever. My heart. So just so that y'all can have some kind of perspective, my heart rate went to 154.
Going to the bathroom?
Yes. So,
That's wild.
I'm constantly sweating. I'm constantly feeling really weird because my heart rate, even at a rest, is over 100 because of the blood thinners. And also that my heart's working overtime to try to pump oxygen to my body. So, like, I just want, like, the only good that comes from this is that people get vaccinated and don't have to deal with what I'm going to have to deal with for the next 4 months and what I had to deal with for the last 3 weeks. And then it's a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think what you said, I think what you said, Walt, is extremely powerful. I haven't talked to anybody who's been through stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Not even just COVID. Like, that is a life-changing thing, and I really do appreciate you doing all that. And I think Troy has a thing to say.
Just to put the heart rate thing into perspective, I ran 3 miles yesterday, and my average heart rate was 158. So just that just
no, I mean it's wild. Like, when you're getting up into the almost 160 category, you are at being scared of a bear about to eat you. Like,
yeah.
The fact that you got up to that, going to the bathroom, is wild. That's insane.
So, you know, like, I feel better. Like, I feel good, but I'm not.
It's almost though like maybe you've adapted to just having this high heart rate.
I forgot, you know, what it's like to be
normal. Yeah.
You know, it's a serious thing, and like, and that's a concern now. Like, you know, my heart rate being 150 is like concerning to me.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
you couldn't do it. You'd have to take a break and whatever.
Yeah, and that's what they told me. They're like, you know, my exercise is limited to, like, when I first came home, my exercise was doing the dishes.
Really?
That was exercise.
Yeah. Well.
way to get out of doing the dishes.
Yeah, you're like too tired, can't do the dishes.
Yeah, too tired. Sorry, Karen. But it's just like, you know, I was one of those people who said I've never had the flu, blah blah. I'm healthy. It's not gonna happen to me. And it freaking did. So that's my you know, I don't know if I said this because, again, my memory's a little discombobulated, but, you know, I was in bad shape. I was one of the patients who was there the longest, who was able to walk out or get wheeled out. You know, the doctors didn't have high hope for me when I was in there. Yeah. Which is a scary thing to think of. Yeah. They told me after I got better that he really was pretty damn worried. You know,
they thought you weren't going to make it.
They thought I wasn't going to make it because my body just wouldn't respond.
Yeah.
And that's such a helpless feeling, man. Yeah. And so, yeah, do you have a new lease on life? Yeah. You know, do I enjoy my daughter's volleyball games a little bit more now? Yeah. But it's something that it's preventable. And I was going, after talking to James Morrison, who now I call Zach Morrison.
Yeah, Zach, same guy.
Same guy.
Yeah. James is a nurse, by the way, for people that don't know.
He's a registered nurse. I was going to get the vaccine that next day after talking to him because I think he minored in vaccines.
James knows a lot about the stuff. I don't know what he did, but he knows.
He was taking some sort of pathology class.
Aaron said he was taking a pathology class.
And when he, like, broke down the vaccine, when, like, because I don't want to say I was anti-vax, but I had concerns because, like, you know, I mean, I'm a logical guy.
Yeah.
And then when he was telling me that, there was people who looked like us going into the hospital and being put on vents,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm going to get the vaccine. Well, the next day I started feeling bad. So I was a day late.
Yep.
Day late and a dollar short.
There you
So
go.
I would urge everybody to don't be a day late and a dollar short. And just go get stuck. Yeah, you're going to feel bad for a day or two or maybe 3. If at all. If at all.
And your arm's going to hurt. It's
Your
gonna
arm's
hurt for like
going
3
to
or 4
hurt,
days.
but
And Troy said all he has is pain in his side.
and you can bleep stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So your arm's gonna hurt. You're gonna feel bad for a couple days, and you might run a slight fever. Get the fuck over it because it feels a lot.
I'm just going to leave it in.
Yeah. Just I promise
what
you,
she
you don't
said,
want.
that's what
you
she
don't want the
wanted.
alternative.
That's what she wanted. All right. Well, Walt, that was excellent. And I think for this week, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do like a break. It's not a break. I'm just going to have some transition noises. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, and they do transition noises in the next topic. So on we are to the next topic now. As many of you know, Troy is a very curious fellow and often has questions. So today, he has a new question. Go ahead.
Question. All right. Yesterday was Constitution Day.
Constitution Day?
Yes. So, what is your favorite part of the Constitution?
The American one?
The United States Constitution.
The United States Constitution. Okay, well, since you're the questioner, I think you should be the person who decides who goes first to answer the question.
Cody, go first.
No, I go first. Okay.
Or do you want me to go first?
No, I'll go. Well, they could go first too, Walt or Aaron.
I know.
But you want me to go first.
Who wants to go first? Does anybody have a favorite part of
Okay,
the Constitution that they like to talk about?
Whoever says not it last goes first. Not it.
Oh, you want me to go first? Oh, was I part of that?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, if it's your segment, so Walt could go first because he was the second to last.
I don't care.
Go first, Bill.
Go first.
My favorite part of the Constitution is the ability for it to be amended.
Whoa, that's pretty good. That is really good.
The ability for it to be
be changed.
Oh, amended, not
When-
amendment.
Okay.
But think of it, they had enough foresight,
So hang on, are we talking about the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or both?
the whole thing.
The whole kit and
The
caboodle.
whole thing.
All of them.
And is it kit and caboodle or
Kit and-
kit and caboodle?
Kit and caboodle.
What's a caboodle?
Everything else.
Okay.
Kit and caboodle. The
Identification.
I stands for I. D stands for identification.
R.I.P. Norm Macdonald.
Love Norm Macdonald.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the ability for it to be amended. They had enough foresight to say, hey, this may not, in 100 years, probably not stand the test of time. So y'all can change some of these things if you'd like to make it a little more accurate and current. So, with the amendments, some of them aren't as effective anymore. Like what's the Third Amendment about housing?
Can't remember. You're not supposed to.
Housing
soldiers
soldiers.
and,
We haven't had a
okay.
foreign war in our country since what? I guess the Civil War would be considered a foreign war, but it really wasn't. But so that doesn't really stand the test of time. But you have like ending slavery and letting them vote, and then giving women the right to vote, which came 50 years
20s.
after that, 1920s, when the women had a right to vote, which is so weird.
Yeah.
So but the ability for it to be amended, so you can change things and make
Right.
it more current. I think that's my favorite part of the Constitution itself.
That's an excellent answer. All right, so who's going to go next? Not it. No, Aaron's got to go next.
Aaron was ready.
I'll tell you what, I'm here for that Second Amendment. No, I'm just,
The right
I'm
to
just kidding.
have bear arms in your house.
I like to arm bears. I have bears that are armed at my house.
See, back when they wrote this thing, there were a plethora of bears wandering around, and you had the right to keep the arms after you killed the bear. That's what that meant. The right to keep and have bear arms. That was the point. You have bear arms.
Those are bear arms. They're very
So,
hairy.
Yeah.
My favorite one's probably the First Amendment. That one's just, it's probably been the most solid one, and considering, over different points of history, there's been different countries who've quashed that right, and that it's just at the forefront. They put it first, I think, for a beginning because it's important to be able to speak out when you see injustice, even if your sense of maybe injustice or your opinion on things is stupid. You should still
against the government in particular.
Yeah, you should still be able to say it because that's public. The public stage is where you test out ideas and you test out your theories. And just looking around, there's different countries like the UK's got a few laws that could be questionable, and then Russia, you can't even you can't even say certain things about Vladimir Putin without really getting killed over there. I mean, that's how you get a pill slipped in your food. But I mean, I think that's the cornerstone. I like the Second Amendment, but the first one is so important. I think that's what's made America a force for good. Is that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, if you hated Trump or if you hate Biden right now, you still have the ability to say F that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And like with what, like the Ninth Amendment of saying that every other thing, freedom is yours as well. Even if it's not stated in the Constitution, every freedom is yours. That's what makes America so great, I think, is that compared to other countries, especially when this document was written, it was so different, it was so unique, is that you actually have freedoms to do what you want. There's not a monarchy or whatever telling you what to do. You can do whatever you want, and the government is run by the people. The people elect the politicians at that point. So it was saying we are totally different. We're going to you can do what you want. You can say what you want. You can do this. You can do that. You have all these rights, even if they're not stated in this document. You can still do whatever you want. Every right is yours. So it was such a unique document in that form. Is that here are the first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. These will always be in effect in America, but you can add more to it. You can change things, like what prohibition was. They made an amendment for prohibition, and then years later they made an amendment to end prohibition. So you have the ability to change things, which makes America so great. Instead of saying, this is how we're going to do it, you better follow these laws, we can change things over time.
With some flexibility.
Yes, to fit
Aaron
America.
said there's a core with some flexibility, and
Exactly.
that's right. And the thing is, when you do that, you can really advance with culture. Like, forever, gay people couldn't get married, and it became a more acceptable cultural thing. It's like, well, you know what? They can get married now.
Yeah.
And that's allowable in a place where you can actually change.
And with this being with America being such an open country, you don't even have to have an amendment for it. You can just say, okay, go ahead.
Like, okay.
Yeah, it's not even something that has to be a law, like stated by the government.
Well,
Just go ahead and do
marijuana,
it.
there probably will not be a marijuana amendment.
Yeah.
At some point, if marijuana is going to be legal, the laws will just change and it'll be legal.
Yeah.
But like when you go to Afghanistan or Iraq or countries, Saudi Arabia, there's no changing. Like, they just don't change.
Yeah.
You just stick with the traditional thing. All right. So who's going to go next? Not it.
Walt will go.
Man, I'm good at this game. Yeah. Mainly because
you're the one pulling the start gun on it.
Yeah.
So
there are inequities.
So I've thought about this before. Troy, you're a history major, so I'm not going to put it as eloquently as Troy did, but when the question was asked, what's your favorite part of the Constitution? One of the first things that came to mind was one thing that I've always been fascinated with was, I call it, like, it's a living, breathing document. And I don't mean to take exactly what you said, but like, that is always like that somebody in the 1700s had the smarts to think about, because we tend to be self-centered people. Like, y'all, when was the last time y'all thought about 2100 or 2150 or 2120. Never, like, and so they had the wherewithal. I don't know, wrong word. To go. Shit's gonna change.
How is this empire going to last 500 years or 1,000 years? Right?
Yeah, and the only way it lasts is if it can adapt with the times. And I thought that was pretty cool.
We're doing a podcast about flag football, but currently, yeah, it's getting extremely philosophical. Do y'all want to be on the podcast?
No.
Are you sure? Do you want to be on the podcast?
I shouldn't have asked.
Well, no. Yeah, say your name and your best advice you could give anyone.
Best advice?
Yeah.
It's not live.
Yeah, we have a dozen listeners. Sometimes 2 dozen. Our record is 150.
Is it?
We can cut it out.
Wait. What's your dad say?
Holy shit.
Marry your rich man because if he cheats on you, where would you rather be crying, in a yacht or a Walmart?
So
A yacht or a John boat?
this is.
No.
So marry a guy. Marry a rich guy because you'll cry on a yacht.
Instead of a Walmart.
Okay. Thank y'all. That was good.
pretty good
Yeah, it was pretty good.
That
Go
was a
ahead,
very,
Walt,
that was
about
a
your,
very interesting conversation that a lot of people can't hear because the mics weren't behind, but I heard it. And Buffalo Wild Wings waitresses have a very interesting opinion on life.
I like to do these shows or whatever at places like this because we've had some good drop-ins.
I think you need to take a more Howard Stern approach to the podcast and just start.
We've tried to make them get naked before. They won't. Not in Buffalo Wild Wings.
Not
Not
inside
while they're at
here.
work. Yeah, just in the parking lot. Or sometimes in the back, in the freezer. Yeah, the back. All right, go ahead, Walt, with the Constitution.
Yeah, let's get on important things instead of girls crying on yachts.
If you cry on a yacht,
Is it really crying?
well, if a yacht sinks and no... Go ahead.
So anyway, not to take what Troy said, but yeah, I've always thought that was very, very interesting. I've actually... So one of, I guess I'm going to switch a little bit. One of my favorite presidents
Okay.
is George Washington.
Yeah.
If there was one person I could meet, go back in time and meet, I really think it'd be him because not that I don't know, it's just you've heard about him your whole freaking life.
Right.
And so for those who don't know, I'm a coin dealer, and coin dealers tend to deal with collectibles and stuff like that. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting the guy. If y'all watched Pawn Stars, he actually owns George Washington's sword and George Washington's suit.
Okay.
He's a coin dealer.
Yeah.
And I met him and was talking to him about some certain coins that he has, some high dollar coins. And just to hear his, to know that he owns the actual suit that George Washington used to wear, one of the
Right.
suits that he used to wear, which is hot pink, by the way, or was hot pink. It's faded over time, but that was considered a very masculine color back in the day. FYI.
Good.
Don't know. Polka dotted blue, I think.
Everyone knew that George Washington wore pantaloons with, I don't know, American red, white, and blue stars and stripes, all 50 stars. He knew it was going to be that way.
He knew that.
He knew. So my favorite part of the Constitution is actually Aaron's. I like the First Amendment the best, but I'll try to be different. I like that there is this separation of powers thing. I think that's a pretty brilliant way to start a country. If you're going to say, okay, we don't want a kingdom, we don't want a king, we don't want they didn't have communism back then, but essentially they didn't want a communist society where everybody's you know, your bricklayer is the same as your doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they wanted competition. So I think it was pretty intelligent to have a Congress that made laws, a judiciary who interpreted laws, and a executive branch that enforced laws. I mean, that's like an 8th grade thing. I get that's a very simple deal, but if you go look at countries and history and other places, until America came along, nobody had that.
Yes.
I don't know of any place that had that. Three
branches of
government. I don't know any other place before the United States came along that had that. But I think the most important amendment is the first, because I think you have to be able to speak out against the government. And people kind of misinterpret the First Amendment because people think the First Amendment means you can say anything at all ever. Well,
No,
you can't say bomb in a movie theater.
Yeah, you still have to be responsible for your words and your actions. No matter what you say,
Right.
just know there will be repercussions if you say something that incites violence or
The First Amendment.
a reaction. Yeah,
The First Amendment is really so that you can say the president's an idiot. That way it's not like the king where you can say, well, the king's an idiot, then you get beheaded.
exactly.
And also, the First Amendment does not apply to, and here's my struggle with social media, it applies to public speech. But also, if you are a social media conglomerate or a newspaper or anything else, and someone says, well, I want to say insane things on your platform. Well, it's your platform. That's not standing on the side of the road saying it. Like if I host a website, if we have sctxfl.com and some goofball comes on and is like, hey, I want you to put on sctxfl.com that COVID's fake and that the world's ruled by lizard people. I don't have to do that. It's my website. It's my property. So when people complain that Facebook is censoring people, my attitude toward that is really like, it's their company. They build it. They can do whatever they want with it. So maybe I'm wrong. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah,
But
if you wanted to say something, you can say it however you want to.
Call people.
But if you say it on someone else's platform, they have the right, even if you are correct and they are wrong to censor it, they can still censor it because it's their platform.
it's their server, it's their thing. I mean, I wouldn't, like, I have a yard, and you could have a sign that said something that was absolutely correct in every way, but I should be able to tell you, I don't want your sign in my yard. So maybe online space wasn't really thought up by the the guys who drafted the Constitution. I mean, maybe they thought
Maybe they thought about it.
Ben Franklin was like, I will start www dot.
Well, they knew somebody was going to put a sign in their yard.
Yeah, probably so. I know a guy who threw deer guts in somebody's yard because they supported a political party they didn't like.
Oh, I think I know who that person is.
We interviewed his foot one time.
His redneck foot.
Boit! Hey, he made it in.
He's always here.
It's always here. Well, I don't have anything else. Aaron, do you have any closing words?
Well, while we're on the First Amendment stuff, I do have a thought about the social media stuff, and it's something we can just bat around. I don't have a hard stance on it. I'm not about to cuss somebody out for disagreeing, but what do y'all think about the whole issue though that it's Facebook has its own right because it's its platform. It's something they built. At the same time, though, it's kind of like, maybe this is a bad connection, but my mind kind of goes back in the late 1800s during the industrial boom. You had companies that controlled major portions of commerce. You had the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, people like that they had such a stranglehold that it was, one, closing out other competition, but two, you had no choice. When you wanted to buy still, you had to go buy, that certain still.
But now you can't. There's the rules against monopolies, or you can't do that.
And that's where I'm kind of leading to is Facebook too big? Because you've noticed other platforms try to launch, but they never can gain traction. And Facebook is always just going to be there. And, they're at the level that when they want to make a decision or if they're questioned by the government, they're sitting in front of Congress. They're that big of a deal. It's almost like, to me, it just feels like they've dominated the social media platforms. And it's like, how do they have too much control? Because on one hand, it is their thing, but on the other hand, they're calling one thing bad sometimes while they're letting another bad thing stay on. So it's, where do you draw the line? That's all I'm saying.
There was a part during, I guess, when Trump was still president, where it was that Parler website that was a conservative website where the FCC shut them down.
Well, the FCC, hang on, the FCC did not shut them down. Amazon shut them down.
Okay.
They were on Amazon's web servers, and Amazon said, we don't want to host you.
Okay.
The FCC hasn't shut anything down.
Okay.
Like you could, right now, and here's my response to that. Right now, if you had the money and the time and you really wanted to do it, you could start your, let's say, instead of Facebook, Mouthbook. You could start Mouthbook or Parler. You could start Parler, and you could say, you know what, we want to start our own servers. We will buy these servers, and we will host people that we choose to host. And if folk want to come on the internet to come to our thing, they can come to it. The FCC is not going to shut you down unless you show child pornography, fraudulent, like purchasing of passports and stuff like that. That's what the FCC is for. So Amazon to me and Facebook to me, now Facebook is close to a monopoly because it's so huge. It's enormous.
I mean, they own what? Instagram?
They own Instagram. They don't own Twitter. Okay. But they own Instagram. And it's enormous. But if you're a business guy, I mean, Walt, you're a business guy, your point is to make as much money as you can for your people. And if Facebook sees Instagram and thinks it's a great business, I can buy it and I can own it and we can do this too. I don't fault them. And at some point, the federal government probably has to come in with those people like they did with Microsoft and go, well, you can't own Internet Explorers because it's the only way to get on an internet. Go ahead.
So I think that in lies the argument with social media or Facebook is like that's the argument, right? In a way, Aaron's right, and in a way, you're right. Nobody's wrong. Like Facebook has become very powerful to the point that Russia, like it is known that Russia tries to use it, for disinformation campaigns.
Well, real quick, because Aaron is right in a way, because it's like you can stand on the street corner and yell out Biden sucks or Trump sucks, but if someone owns the very air you're breathing in to shoot it out, well, at what point do you get to have agency over the things that you're saying? Because Facebook owns the way that things get out now.
It really does, and to me that's the argument. And like people should be able to have, everybody thinks everything should be black and white, right?
That's not.
And nothing in this world is black and white. It's ever seems. There's always that gray area. Like we could sit here and talk about abortions forever, right? My body, my choice, and another argument of that is like when is it okay, when is it like there's just so many gray areas. And just like with social media, there's so many gray areas. Like can you imagine if Facebook said, they will no longer let President Biden like anything that he like use the platform? Like that to me, they would be controlling information. Or let's say in 2024, it's not President Trump, it's Senator X and Kamala Harris running for president, and then they say Kamala Harris is banned off the platform. That's kind of a big deal.
And also,
they could change the outcome of an election.
And if Facebook, like, it makes this really complicated to me for private industry, because if Facebook really thinks, they're like, man, the president, whoever it is doing things we think will elicit a nuclear response from country X, we need to ban him from the platform because, well, we don't want nuclear war. Like, it puts them in such a weird
But also, is that their job?
That's what they. If I were a Facebook person, I would think, is it my job? But then I would.
But isn't that like the president's job?
But Jesus Christ, if it weren't
Is it your civic duty?
Yeah, you're thinking, man.
But
I
are
mean,
you right or wrong? Like at the end of the
I
day,
don't know.
because there's a lot of people, but there's a lot of people out there who think they're right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's their civic duty to go film a cop in his face, right? As he's trying to make a simple traffic stop, right?
Yeah.
But that's their civic duty, right? But we can both sit here as logical people and debate and go, they weren't right, but they thought they were right. So at what point, like we as the United States say that we are going to follow the leadership of our president, whether you voted for him or not, whoever it is. And so to me,
Well, some of us do.
well, yeah, it's gotten really
Some
out of hand because
folk are,
people are really like, I'm about, and especially like, you know, we talked about the vaccine and everybody's like, I know my rights. I know my rights. I have the right to choose.
Usually the people that yell that don't really know
anything
No,
about
that's
So, like, it's just, there's a big gray area there of, you know, who owns Facebook? Zuckerberg?
Yes.
So, what makes Zuckerberg right and Biden wrong? What makes Zuckerberg right and Trump wrong?
Y'all want your check?
Yeah.
She's
That
"Y'all can
becomes
get
my
the fuck out of
question.
here."
I don't think it has to do with right or wrong. I think it has to do with it's a business, and you can have people. You can say what you want. You can have people say what you want.
It is a major form of communication.
I mean, it is a publicly traded thing, so it should have some people to answer to, not just one person, a committee of people to answer to. So, but I think I don't know. I think if you get the people
I just feel like they're in a pickle and I don't feel like social media is evil like by choice. I don't feel like Twitter's evil by choice. I don't think Facebook is. I think they want to make money. They're like trying to do. They're like, okay, well, we need to do away with coronavirus disinformation, but we also want to allow for not healthy, but for debate and dissent.
But I'm starting to see less and less debate and dissent. I'm starting to see blocked comments from people that they don't want. Just totally blocked.
Well,
like, oh, no, you said something I don't like. We're blocking it totally. People can't see it. That's what I see a lot of lately on Twitter.
But now, I don't do Twitter very much. But what I know about Facebook, at least, is that they will tag stuff with, here's coronavirus, CDC coronavirus information. But I don't. I guess I don't dislike them for what they're trying to do. I think what they're trying to do is, it's very unpopular, halfway noble. I think Jack Dorsey would prefer. Thank you, ma'am.
Anyway, so I've read a couple of books about ISIS, and the best way anyone's ever combated ISIS was by Twitter. What they did, Twitter had this libertarian idea of, we'll let anything go on our platform. It's free speech. You guys say what you want. So most ISIS people that were not from Afghanistan and these places in Levant that got recruited to ISIS were recruited via Twitter, which had battlefield scenes of people dying for Allah and all this other shit. So they would go and do this. Well, Twitter was extremely reticent to censor these posts because they were like, we want to do the libertarian thing where you want to say shit on Twitter, you come in Twitter and you tweet whatever you want. Well, eventually government regulators, who I know are evil, got a hold of Twitter and were like, listen, you're going to have to do this. Well, Jack Dorsey and folk finally acquiesced and said, all right, we will start a whack-a-mole thing and do away with these ISIS Twitter accounts. And they started regulating them. And ISIS recruitment went down exponentially because that's where it was spread. So that's Twitter's thing with what they deem as dangerous information. But the problem is, who decides what dangerous information is? Right. Right. So, and if you ever get an insane president, like a truly crazy guy, how do you know when it's wrong? You don't. It's hard. It's really, to me, social media companies have the hardest thing to navigate right now of anybody, because you're like, well, I don't want to put out false information, but I don't want to do away with the First Amendment. And
I think it was easier for them to do. I think it was easier for them to do away with some of the Trump stuff because a lot of the people in their circles were just so anti-Trump. and I think it caused a backlash with now the far right people. I mean, you just can't tell people anything.
So you were saying that you think it was easier when because they had their own political leanings.
Like in Southeast Texas, okay, in Lumberton, it's easier to be a Republican than it is a Democrat. True or false? True.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to be a Trumper than an anti-Trump. And so when you have the support of what you feel like in your environment of the majority, it's easier to act. And I think with some of the social media, but it causes a backlash, right?
Right.
And so, like, when I was in the hospital, there was, 12 News or whatever would have put out a story like, they did a story on this Army veteran who had a very similar story to me, 33 years old, healthy,
right,
in the hospital, blah, blah, blah. Well, you had people commenting on great propaganda piece. You had to go all the way to Rockwell. And so here I come, like, I'm feeling good that day, and I'm like, I'm in the hospital, I'm 35 years old, never had any health conditions, and, but what did I expect to happen? I had a couple people say, oh, sorry. But, did I change their mind?
No, probably not. And the thing with the Trump stuff, look, if you listen to this, I don't like Donald Trump. Sorry. But I think he was special in a way that is different from every other president that preceded him short of Andrew Johnson. In that he did not have trust in governmental institutions and traditional institutions that most politicians and people trust in. So it was this very unique situation where you had the CDC and the FDA and the NIH saying one thing and the president saying something different. I think that was a big divide. And I think that was something that it was really hard for people to wrap their minds around. And I think it was something that was really hard to reconcile with social media platforms, because then they're left asking, okay, well, what's the truth? What the CDC says or what the president says? Do we trust the institution or do we trust the man? And that was extremely difficult and still difficult for a lot of people and institutions. Because, if you elect some guy, the leader of your country, you tend to want to go with what he says. But also, if you build up an institution over 70 years or 100 years, you really want to think, well, man, we built this thing up. We've had scientists. We've had generations of scientists researching all this stuff, and they put out statistics, and they do real peer-reviewed studies, and we want to believe this stuff, and those things compete. And you end up just going with the thing you felt in your gut was right in the first place. And your gut's always wrong. Sorry. Decision-making with gut is not usually good.
Think twice. Vote once.
Think twice, vote 3 times, and, well, vote for Bill Peterson.
Or Bowen and Titman. They're both on the ballot still.
What's the 2024 election?
Yeah.
Hang on. Aaron has one more thing.
I have womanly hips.
That's a good way to end this.
I feel like something bad's going to happen to Bill Peterson soon.
I smell like shit and I walk like a lady. Yep. Anything else? Man, that was a good show.
That was. It's going to be very long to listen to.
Yeah. Long and hard.
It'll be hard to listen to.
That's what she said.
I'll be hard when I listen to it.
Yeah. Well, you're all very special. We love you. And
you're all alive. That's what's good.
That's the thing. We wish you all the success.
#don't. And good luck.